All right, it looks like we're probably ready to go now, so I'm going to ask everybody to turn back on their cameras for me. Right, it looks like I have everybody then up and running that I need at this point then. I'll just kind of go on with some of the additional preliminary reminders and just remind everybody that you need to comply with your time requirements and that those will be considered in your scoring. And at this point in time, then I am going to technically or officially call then the Dakota Weirs versus Lush Fertilizer Incorporated case. Can I go ahead and have the M team introduce your participants, please?
Good afternoon, Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is Lila Hinchy, and I'll be performing the direct exam of Miss Carson Durst and the cross exam of Skylar Weirs.
Good afternoon. My name is Annie Goldmanis. I will be doing the direct of Dr. Casey Rogers, the cross of Blake Doncourt, and the closing argument.
Good afternoon. My name is Marga Lively, and I'll be performing the direct exam of Dakota Weirs and the cross exam of Dr. Williams. I will also be performing the opening statement.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Avery Martin, but today I am Dr. Casey Rogers.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Kendall Adams, but today I am Carson Durst.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm Macy Bjork, but today I am Dakota Weirs.
Thank you. And I think that was everyone from Team M. So if I could go ahead then and have Team U introduce all of your participants, please.
Good morning, Your Honor. I am Aiden Rickenbach. I will be directing Blake Doncourt and crossing Dakota Weirs, and I will be doing the opening statement.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I am Elizabeth Anthony. I will be directing Skylar Weirs, crossing Carson Durst, and I will be doing the closing statement.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I will be directing Dr. Devin Williams and crossing Dr. Casey Rogers.
Good morning, Your Honor. I'm Chanel Dawson, and I will be Blake Doncourt.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I am Emma Ross Kelly, and I'm Skylar Weirs.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm Cheyenne Nicely, but today I will be Dr. Devin Williams.
Thank you. And I think that takes care of all of our participants. If I could have our timekeepers and also our final score panelists turn on your cameras for this last portion, I'll get everyone sworn in and we can get ourselves started. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead then and ask that everybody raise your right hand for me. For team members, do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and the rules of the mock trial competition? If so, please say I do. Thank you. And I'm seeing a lot of, I know that you guys are muted, so thank you for that. Witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witnesses' statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial? And again, I'm seeing heads nodding. Thank you. And finally, for gallery members, including teachers and attorneys, coaches, family members, and friends, I don't know that we have any of those here, but I'll go ahead and say this in case anybody is either watching on live stream or just doesn't have their computers up, that at this point in time, I'll ask that you promise to represent yourselves as positive role models and to behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical and professional sportsmanship during and after this mock trial round. And finally, for my scoring panelists, do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition? Thank you. With that, then, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that we're ready to get started. Are my timekeepers ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. With that, then I will turn to the plaintiff and ask if you're prepared to give an opening statement. I think I've got you on mute, so make sure that you unmute yourselves.
Sorry, Your Honor.
That's all right. Right, and with that, you can begin when you're ready and my timekeepers are ready.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury and opposing counsel, I would like to put you in a situation. Imagine that you are just 20 years old, fresh out of high school, getting ready to go to Juilliard, the best performing art school in the entire world, and then you get diagnosed with cancer. This cancer, a type so aggressive that you can't even sit on the piano stool for 10 minutes, doing what you love the most. Imagine that this aggressive cancer you have was caused by a fertilizer that you started using at work when you were 14 years old. A fertilizer that is banned across France, but does not have any warning that could cause cancer and take away someone's entire future. This is the exact situation that Dakota Weirs has been put in and might be in for the rest of her life. All because a fertilizer did not have a warning label on it that it could cause cancer. While Lush Fertilizer will tell you that Miss Weirs never wore protective clothing, please take into consideration that it was the middle of the summer, over 100 degrees out, too hot to wear clothing like that. Like Dakota will tell you, she would have been the first person to wear protective clothing if she knew the product she was using could cause cancer. Later in this trial, you will hear from Dr. Casey Rogers, who studied the effects of chemicals on humans. You will hear that she never peer-reviewed her study, but at least she spent several years studying the effects of Drufo, while Lush Fertilizer only spent 2 months. Lastly, you will hear from Carson Durst, who worked on the development of Drufo and learned how the chemical is potentially carcinogenic to humans. She will talk about how Lush Fertilizer learned that Drufo could be linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, the exact cancer Miss Weirs is diagnosed with. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would like to put you in a situation, or touch on that one last point. You are here today because Dakota Weirs is diagnosed with cancer. Her entire future has been taken away by Lush Fertilizer, all because they did not follow up on the deadly effects of their fertilizer and make sure it was safe. Thank you.
Thank you. And let me ask now if the defense wishes to present an opening statement.
I do.
And you can proceed when you're ready.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I welcome you to the court today. I am sorry for the time you are taking out of your life to be here. The reason we are here is because Dakota Weirs believes her problem, which was caused by her own mistake, should be everyone's problem. I hope you will find that Lush Fertilizer is not responsible for her illness and it was the result of a personal mistake. Dakota will try to convince you that we caused her disease, although she ignored common sense and common safety standards. Her mistake led to major consequences. She believes that Drufo, a helpful bonding agent in our fertilizer, is a deadly and dangerous disease. Carson Durst, a former employee, will try to convince you that we knew about Drufo's deadly effects and chose to ignore them because we apparently care more about our profits than our customers. He will also try to blame his firing on a big conspiracy theory about Drufo when it was really because he was a bad and negligent employee. Lastly, expert Casey Rogers will try to prove that Drufo is dangerous because of his professional study, although he lacks the qualifications and environment for a reliable study. On the other hand, Lush's CEO, Blake Duncourt, will tell you that Drufo is safe and a helpful chemical and is incapable of causing Dakota's disease. He will also disprove the claim that he cares more about his profits than his customers. Skylar Weirs will show how helpful Drufo is and talk about how it improves the environment. Lastly, Dr. Devin Williams, an actual professional, is going to show the flaws in Casey Rogers' study and show what a reliable study would show. Once more, I apologize for your lost time because of this trial and hope you believe the professionals and find a verdict of not guilty.
Thank you. Let me turn to the plaintiff then and ask if you're prepared to call your first witness.
Your Honor, we were wondering if we could discuss preliminary matters due to technical difficulties.
Certainly. What matter do we have currently that we need to handle?
We were wondering if all counsel was able to perform a redirect.
Can I get any position from the defense?
I just have I have two pre-trial matters.
What, do you have any position in regard to the request for redirect?
I'm fine with it.
All right, court will allow redirect. However, I will not allow recross because of the time constraints. So redirect for both teams.
Your Honor, we request if Dakota Weirs is allowed to stand up and move around due to the fact that a symptom of her cancer causes bruises and therefore she cannot sit for a long time.
Is there any position from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Court will allow, however, I will note that if it becomes too distracting to the court in terms of hearing the evidence, then I may make the request that she remain seated. Were those the last preliminary matters?
No, Your Honor.
All right, and from the defense?
We have some more preliminary matters.
Oh, I apologize. Go ahead.
The plaintiff asked permission to screen share exhibits while laying foundation with a witness.
And any position from defense?
No.
Court will so allow.
And finally, Your Honor, the plaintiff asked for permission to use the remaining time in closing arguments for rebuttal.
Court will so allow.
And we have one more. We request that the council is permitted to use Dakota Weirs and Skylar Weirs by their first name because they shared the same last name and it could cause confusion.
And any position from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Court will also allow to alleviate any confusion for the individuals and witnesses.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is all the preliminary matters we have.
Thank you. And let me turn to the defense then and ask if you have any preliminary matters as well.
I would just like to ask that everyone refer to the witnesses as their preferred pronoun and that we be able to correct them if they are wrong.
And any position from the people?
No, Your Honor.
Court will so allow.
That is all.
All right, thank you. With that, then, are the parties ready to proceed with their first witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, with that, I'll go ahead and turn to the plaintiff and ask you to call your first witness.
The plaintiff called Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
Thank you.
Could you please state your full name for the jury?
Hello, my name is Dr. Casey Rogers.
Do you know the defendant in this case?
No, I do not.
Okay, and why are you here?
I'm here to express my expert opinion on the effects of chemicals, specifically the effect of DRUFO.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a professor at UC Berkeley.
Could you please describe your education?
Yes, so I have a PhD in agriculture and entomology from UC Berkeley. I have my Bachelor of Science degree from CSU in agriculture and chemistry. And prior to earning my PhD, I worked for a large multinational research company.
Your Honor, do I have permission to screen share Exhibit 6 to lay foundation with the witness?
You do.
In front of you is Exhibit 6. Could you please describe what this is?
Yes, so Exhibit 6 is a copy of my current CV, which just sets forth all of my professional and work background.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of your educational and professional background?
Yes, it is.
And did you prepare this document?
Yes, I did.
Do you regularly update your CV?
Of course, it's part of my work.
Your Honor, I'd like to admit Exhibit 6 into evidence.
Position from the defense?
I will allow it. I'm fine with it being entered.
Court will so enter Exhibit 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Have you published any research on exposure to chemicals?
Yes, I've published numerous scientific articles on the effects of chemicals, and some of them do talk about DRUFO.
Your Honor, do I have permission to screen share Exhibit 7 to lay foundation with the witness?
You may.
In front of you is Exhibit 7. Could you please describe what this is?
Yes, this is a list of my publicated works. 4 of them talk about the effects of DRUFO, 2 on plants and 2 on humans, and the other 2 talk about the effects of chemicals on plants.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of all the research you have published?
Yes, it is.
Did you draft this yourself?
Yes, I did.
And do you keep this in the regular course of your business?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, I would like to admit Exhibit 7 into evidence.
Court will so admit.
Could you please describe exactly what you have published?
Yes, so like I said, I've published 6 scientific articles to talk about the effects of Drufo on humans specifically, to talk about the effects of Drufo on plants specifically, and then to study the effects of other chemicals on plants as well.
What specifically have you studied?
I've studied the effects of Drufo or other chemicals on plants and humans and what those effects are over a prolonged period of time.
Have you ever advised companies regarding the effects of chemicals on people?
Of course, all the time. I've made numerous recommendations to companies and regulatory agencies on precautions they should take when handling these chemicals.
Have you ever testified as an expert before?
I haven't, but I'm really hoping this won't be my last time testifying because as an educator, I want to educate the most people I possibly can. And I feel like this is a great way to educate people and talk about those really harmful effects of these chemicals in hopes that something that happened to Dakota won't happen again.
Are there some areas of your background that overlap with toxicology?
Of course. I'm a professor of entomology and horticulture, which is basically the study of how chemicals affect the environment. I also have my Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry, so a lot of what I do is very similar to toxicology.
And have you published the studies that deal with the overlap?
Yes, I have. I've published numerous scientific articles, like I mentioned, that deal with this overlap. I did publish a scientific article that talks about the effect of Drufo on humans as well.
Are you familiar with Drufo?
Yes, I am.
Your Honor, I would like to admit Dr. Casey Rogers as an expert in the fields of horticulture, pesticide chemistry, and toxicology with an emphasis on Drufo.
And position from the defense?
May I voir dire the witness?
You may.
You are a professor, correct?
Yes.
And you teach at the University of California at Berkeley?
Yes.
And you do not live in Colorado, is that correct?
No, because I teach at UC Berkeley in California.
You have a degree in agriculture and entomology, correct?
I have my PhD in that, yes, correct.
And you have a degree in chemistry?
Yes, a Bachelor of Science degree.
You do not, however, have a degree in toxicology?
No, I do not. I do not have my PhD in toxicology.
And you have never been an expert witness before?
No, this is my first time testifying, which is great because I get to educate even more people.
And are you being paid to testify today?
Yes, but I don't think that's fair because you're being paid to defend.
No further questions, Your Honor. All I ask is that the witness stays inside their fields of expertise during the examination.
Court at this time then is going to so qualify as requested by the plaintiff. You can continue.
Why did Drufo catch your attention?
It caught my attention when it was first put on the market in 2003. I really believe it was just rushed without any scientific evidence or research to back up its safety.
What is Drufo?
Drufo is a patent ingredient that Lush Fertilizer uses in all of its fertilizer.
And why is it put in the fertilizer?
It's put in the fertilizer as a bonding agent.
Who developed Drufo?
It was developed by the researchers on Lush Fertilizer's scientific team.
Does it have any negative effects?
For my personal research, it does.
What are they?
From what I found, it has an increase in serious health conditions, including Dakota's disease, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
What research have you done to figure out that Drufo has affected people other than Dakota?
Well, specifically, one of my studies, I put together 3 groups: a control group, a group of people who were exposed to Drufo on occasion, and a group of people who were exposed to Drufo regularly, and then I monitored them for a period of 4 years.
What were the results of your study?
I found an increase in serious health conditions for that prolonged exposure group. In fact, they were 10 times more likely to get cancer than the control group that had never been exposed to Drufo, and they were even 5 times more likely to get cancer or have those serious health conditions than the user that only used Drufo occasionally.
So what did you conclude based off this data?
Clearly, there's a correlation between cancer and Drufo.
Have you specifically studied non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Yes, I have.
Is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma genetic?
No, it is not. It is also not.
Objection, Your Honor. This is out of the witness's area of expertise.
Response from the plaintiff.
Do I have a minute to confer with my co-counsel?
You may.
Thank you. Your Honor, Dr. Casey Rogers' studies overlap with Drufo, making her sufficient enough to testify about her research that she has made.
Response or reply from the defense?
Yes, so the question was about non-Hodgkin lymphoma and if it is genetic, yet Dr. Casey Rogers does not have any experience with a medical field nor any education in the medical area.
Your Honor, permission to reply?
You may.
Your Honor, she already testified that her background overlaps with toxicology and her entire practice is studying the effects of toxic pesticides on humans and plants. She even specifically teaches a class on herbicide selectivity, which is the study of toxic effects of fertilizers on humans and plants.
Court will overrule the objection. You can continue.
In your study, did you examine ways to prevent and minimize exposure to Drufo?
Of course. I made numerous recommendations to people who were exposed to Drufo. I said that they should wear long pants, a long shirt, a mask, preferably an N95 mask, to make sure that the chemical wasn't being absorbed via the skin.
Did you familiarize yourself with Dakota Weir's medical and employment records at all before testifying?
Yes, I did.
And earlier you said that you made recommendations to companies on precautions that should be taken when coming in contact with Drufo. So what exactly were those recommendations that you were making?
Well, just like I said, I recommended that people make sure that their skin is not exposed while handling this product, and that they also are wearing a mask that covers both their nose and their mouth, so they do not breathe in the product. Those are the two main ways that the Drufo can get into your system.
When you reviewed Dakota's medical and employment records, was there anything that stood out to you in those that could have been a reason she may have already had cancer?
No, she had a perfect bill of health.
Thank you. No further questions at this time.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor, but before I start my cross-examination, one of our witnesses, Skylar Weirs, says that they're waiting for the host to let them into the meeting.
And can I get some assistance from our monitor and a time pause while we deal with the technical issue? Do I have somebody with Arapahoe County that can assist? I don't believe that I have the controls to allow individuals in. Thank you very much.
Your Honor, we can just continue with the cross while they figure that out if that works.
That's fine. Let me just check in with my timekeeper. Are you ready to go back onto the clock? Thank you very much. With that, then I'll go ahead and have you begin your cross-examination.
So you're currently a professor at Berkeley.
Correct.
And you're being paid by the plaintiff to be here?
I don't think that's a fair question because aren't you getting paid to be here too?
That's so is that a yes or no?
Yes, similar to you, I'm getting paid to be here because I'm an expert witness.
And you do not have a degree nor expertise in toxicology, correct?
I do not have a degree in toxicology specifically, no.
Moving on. Does wearing protective gear such as long clothing and a face mask reduce the risk of absorption through the skin or exposure by breathing of Drufo?
Yes.
And this is recommended on the label, correct?
Yeah. What label are you referring to?
The label on Lush fertilizer.
Is that it? The label on Lush fertilizer? Yes, that's correct. I'm assuming you're referring to Exhibit 1. Yeah.
But Dakota did not follow these recommendations.
Objection.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, this exhibit has not been entered yet.
Response from the defense?
I think that Casey Rogers should be aware of the label, and I have not entered the exhibit into evidence yet, but I am just asking about the recommendations made by the company.
Court is going to overrule the objection. You can continue.
But Dakota did not follow these recommendations.
To my knowledge, no, she did not.
Even after her employer, the label on the package, and her boss told her to do so?
Correct.
And these recommendations can prevent non-Hodgkin lymphoma and negative side effects?
Yeah, this can lower your chance of breathing in the Drufo.
And Dakota was exposed to the chemical without any protective gear?
Correct, she wasn't wearing protective gear when she was working with the fertilizer.
Is it possible to develop non-Hodgkin lymphoma from other fertilizers without wearing protective gear?
Well, I didn't specifically study that, so I can't answer that question.
Is it true that you have studied other fertilizers and other toxicology topics?
That's correct, but I didn't study it on humans. I only studied Drufo on humans.
So you conducted an experiment to find a correlation between Drufo and non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Correct.
And you had a control group in this experiment, correct?
Mm-hmm.
With no exposure to Drufo nor other fertilizer?
Yes.
And your other group, these were people such as farmers and gardeners who had constant exposure to pesticides, Drufo, and fertilizers, correct?
Well, they were all using Lush fertilizer because of the Drufo, because we're specifically studying Drufo, that means they're all using Lush fertilizer.
Did this group wear protective gear during the study?
No, that was not one of our variables.
Was this prolonged exposure group only exposed to Drufo products?
Yeah, because they were all using Lush fertilizer.
Yes, I'm aware, but were the farmers, are you 100% sure that the only fertilizer they were using during their job was Drufo?
No, but we can assume that the environmental conditions were the same amongst them all as well. Our variable in this was Drufo, so that's what we were studying specifically, not other chemicals.
So the farmers could have been using other fertilizers?
That wasn't a variable in this equation.
Is that a yes or no? Could they have been using other fertilizers?
Possibly, but that's not even what the study was studying, so.
And has it been proven that other pesticides are carcinogenic?
I can't answer that question. I haven't studied that enough.
Objection. Out of the scope of the witness.
Response from defense?
The witness is an expert in toxicology, so they should know about fertilizers and their ingredients.
Any additional reply?
Your Honor, Dr. Casey Rogers is not an expert in the field of toxicology, but it overlaps with her other expertises.
Court is going to overrule the objection. She was qualified as an expert in toxicology. You can continue.
So is it possible that there was cross-contamination in your study?
Like I said, that wasn't a variable in our study, so that wasn't what I was studying.
So the farmers in your study could have been using other fertilizers, correct?
No, they were using Lush fertilizer because we were studying Drufo, and that's the only fertilizer that has Drufo in it.
Yes, I'm aware, but could they have been using other fertilizers not containing Drufo?
No, because we were studying people who were using Drufo.
Objection. Asked and answered.
Any response?
Yes, my witness is not answering the question that I'm asking. I am asking if the farmers in the experiment were only using Drufo products.
Yes, they were. That's what I was.
Court, let the court rule. Court is going to sustain the objection.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Continue.
So the farmers in your experiment were 100% using what Drufo products, correct?
We were studying.
Objection. Asked and answered.
Any response?
Yes. I had asked if they were using only Drufo products, and now I am confirming that they were using Drufo products.
Court will overrule the objection.
Yes, that's the variable in our equation. That's what we're studying.
So did you monitor the farmers in your experiment?
Over a period of 4 years.
And you are 100% sure that they used no other fertilizers?
Like I said.
Asked and answered.
Any response?
I did not ask if her farmers had used any other fertilizers.
Court is going to sustain the objection. That question has been asked and answered.
Moving on, has your study been published?
Yes.
And has it been peer reviewed?
No.
So it was really a non-credited experiment.
I don't think that's a fair assumption just because it wasn't peer reviewed. A study doesn't need to be peer reviewed. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to publish it.
With no way of knowing if Drufo was really the cause of non-Hodgkin lymphoma in your study, you still published your study?
No, I did know it was the cause of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yet you are completely unaware if Drufo was the only fertilizer used?
I just said it was the only fertilizer used.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Ms. Rogers, why do you think your study is valid?
I think my study is valid because the only variable we were looking at was Drufo. And it's fair to say that the environmental conditions across the board were relatively the same. As well, Drufo is only a product in Lush fertilizer. So by studying only that, we can see that this chemical does have a true impact on serious health conditions. Like I said, the control group the group that was regularly exposed to this Drufo had a 10 times more chance of getting cancer than the control group. I just found that astonishing. And I think everyone here should really take that to heart and be warned.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. No further questions at this time.
Thank you. This time then I'll turn to the plaintiff and ask if you're prepared to call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Miss Carson Durst to the stand.
Thank you. Go ahead. You may begin when you're ready.
Can you please state your name and pronouns for the jury?
Hello, my name is Carson Durst. I go by she, her.
And Ms. Durst, why are you here today?
I'm here today because Lush fertilizer causes cancer, and they knew it.
Could you tell us about your educational background?
Of course. I graduated from Arizona State University in 2003 with a bachelor in science and chemical engineering.
And after graduating, where did you go to work?
I went to work as an intern at Lush Fertilizer.
And did you know the defendant blanked on court?
I did, yeah.
And how was your relationship, in your opinion?
We were pretty close. I mean, I was friends with Blake's son. We went to soccer tournaments together. I spent some time at their lake house, etc.
Back to your work. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience as a product development engineer in the research and development department at Lush Fertilizer?
Of course. I was an intern initially because I was a senior out of college, looking for a job. And then afterwards, I was rising through the ranks. I was working hard.
And eventually I was able to spend some time looking into the health effects of Truffaut and its cancer-causing agents.
And with Drufo, what were you researching?
Yeah, so I was researching the health effects and specifically if it could cause cancer or not, which we learn now.
Did you find any specific studies that aided your research?
I did. One, in fact, stood out to me. It was one in England, actually. It was talking about rats, and it was talking about the increase of these carcinogens present that led to a higher percentage of lymphomas and lysomas and etc.
Your Honor, permission to screen share Exhibit 3.
You may.
Ms. Durst, do you see Exhibit 3 in front of you?
I do, and it happens to be sideways, but I have a copy in front of me.
Could you briefly describe what this study is?
Of course. This was the research that I was talking about that I reviewed. This one was the one in England and about the rats. It was talking about the C3NO at 9P.
And did you put this study anywhere?
Yeah, as I did with all of my work, I put it in my research notebook and then that was submitted to my higher up.
Ms. Durst, is this a true and accurate copy of the study that you put into your lab book?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, the plaintiff moves to admit Exhibit 3 into evidence.
Position from defense?
No objection.
Thank you. Exhibit 3 will be admitted.
Ms. Durst, what does this data represent?
Yeah, again, so the C3NOP 9P caused a significant percentage increase of different cancers related to this specific compound within lush fertilizer.
And in your professional opinion, why do people choose to research on rats?
Well, because they're mammals, so they're similar to humans.
And Ms. Durst, what other research did you perform concerning Drufo?
Me and my coworkers produced an in-house study on humans, actually.
Could Your Honor, permission to screen share Exhibit 4?
You may.
Can you see it, Your Honor, in blue?
No, unfortunately, came up as a blank screen.
I think we're having some technical difficulties.
Could we do a momentary pause on the time so that we can fix our technical difficulty, please?
Thank you, Your Honor.
There we go. Please resume time.
Ms. Durst, do you see Exhibit 4 in front of you?
I do, yeah.
Do you recognize it?
Yes, this is an email sent to me and my coworkers.
Who was this written by?
This was by Jerry Langley.
And could you list 5 names that this was to?
Yes, so we've got me, Alex Monroe, John, Paula, and then specifically Blake Doncourt.
Your Honor, the plaintiff moves to admit Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Position from defense?
It's fine.
Exhibit 4 will be admitted.
Ms. Durst, could you please read or summarize this for the jury?
Of course. This is shocking to me. This, in summary, is proving that Lush Fertilizer had concerns that arose within their product, and they knew it, and they swept it under the covers and successfully managed to never mention anything about the concerning cancer-causing agents within their fertilizer.
Ms. Durst, after you received this email, what happened at Lush?
Immediately after I did start getting backlash, which was really ironic because I was one of the people that published something about the way that there were present carcinogens. And then right after I started getting mal reviews, and I was working hard and it was really unfair to me.
Ms. Durst, let me direct your attention to back to your research. Did you ever submit your research anywhere?
Yeah, as we were touching on before, I wrote it down in my notebook, and then as usual, in like a monthly report, we would send our notebooks in to our manager, Jerry.
And was there any mention of the chance of Drufo being a carcinogenic chemical in that report?
Sorry, I may have misunderstood, but yeah, so I reported that there were potential carcinogens, but then in the report that was published by the company, there was nothing.
And based on what you learned from this monthly report, what conclusions did you draw?
I was taken really aback, honestly. Lush fertilizer, as amazing as it is, it covered up successfully their cancer-causing agents, and that is not right.
Moving back to employment, how was it at this point?
Yeah, I started getting bad reviews. The people at my company were saying that I was rising through the ranks unfairly, and that's not true. I was a hard worker, but it was ironic because I had just started talking about the things that could cause harm to Lush fertilizer as the company, like their good work.
And after receiving these complaints and having to complete work that nobody wanted to do, who did you discuss this with?
I tried to discuss it with Blake Doncourt, but it was hard to reach him. It was really hard to reach Blake.
And after it being really hard to reach him, what did you do?
As one does at a company, when I saw there was no future for me, I applied for a new job.
And where did you go to work?
I went to Terrace Greenery. I love it there.
When did you start working at Terrace?
I believe it was 2006.
And was there any pause, or why did you start working immediately?
Yeah, there was kind of a lull in that because I was not supposed to start working there for another 6 months. I had signed something with Lush Fertilizer.
And why did they have you sign that?
They didn't want to discuss, they didn't want me to disclose any secrets about their thing, which was kind of unfair because, the contents of their fertilizer was not a secret. So whatever.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Durst, you were close with the Duncourt family, correct?
Yeah, in the past.
And did Blake Duncourt pull strings for you to get a job at Lush, correct?
Well, as all college students do, they really need a connection to get a good job. So, I was a college student. I needed someone.
Okay. And with 3 months after getting an internship, you got a full-time position, correct?
I think that's what you do as an intern. So once I moved out of the intern state, I was doing well. They loved me. So I moved up. Yeah.
Okay. When researching one of the chemical compounds, did you ever think to conduct your own human-based tests?
That wasn't my job. So, I wanted to. That sounded interesting, but that wasn't my job. So.
Okay. You went to Blake Duncourt to communicate about a higher-up supervising techniques, correct?
I'm sorry, I misunderstand. Could you rephrase that?
Yes. You went to Blake Duncourt to communicate about Jerry Langley's supervising techniques, correct?
It was more about my performance reviews, but okay.
Yes or no?
It was about my performance reviews, so no.
Okay.
No, but okay.
You had signed a confidentiality agreement and later disregarded the agreement so that you could work at Tara's Greenery, correct?
Object. Foundation.
Any response?
No, Your Honor.
Court will overrule. You can continue.
No more questions.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Was Lush Fertilizer aware of the carcinogenic properties within their product?
Yes. And it's very, very disturbing that they did, but they knew that there was cancer-causing agents within their fertilizer.
And how did you know that for sure?
Because I had found a study in England about rats that had an increase of cancers. Also, another scientist in my workforce mentioned it in a meeting. And also, thirdly, we conducted an in-house study on humans.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Let me ask then if the plaintiff wishes to call any additional witnesses.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Dakota Weirs to the stand.
Thank you.
Stop that. Seriously, yeah, it's really bad.
Right.
Good afternoon, Ms. Weirs.
Good afternoon.
Can you tell us a little bit about why you were here today?
Sure. I'm here because I'm a 20-year-old with cancer, which I believed was caused by Lush Fertilizer. I was healthy, I had my whole future ahead of me, and now I have cancer, which was caused by this company. So I'm here to make sure that that doesn't happen to anybody else.
You said you were 20 years old, so you just graduated from high school, right?
I did, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about your high school experience for us?
Yeah, I was very active in school. I was the student government president, and I was also part of the National Honor Society.
Did you do any other extracurricular activities?
Piano has had a very serious impact on my life. Since I was a little girl, I have played the piano, and I've gotten so good, I received a scholarship to Juilliard.
Who influenced your love of the piano?
Well, I just have all these memories from being a baby and curling under the piano was being played and looking up and seeing my grandfather. And I'd always dreamed of becoming a person like him. So I thought I'd pursue my dream because I got my scholarship to Juilliard, which is like the most prestigious school, and it's an honor getting accepted there. And I remember getting so excited that I was going to live my dream and he was going to be so proud of me. And then I got diagnosed with cancer.
What about your other family members? Did you have a good relationship with them?
Yeah, I've always had a somewhat steady relationship with my father. Ever since I was diagnosed with cancer, he has helped me research the product Lush Fertilizer and has helped me through this whole thing.
What about your other family members?
I have a twin sister, Skylar, with whom I've never been particularly close with, and my mother was absent for most of my life.
So if you weren't close with your twin, would you consider that a rivalry?
Yeah, you could call it that.
Do you care to talk a little bit about that rivalry for us?
Sure. As I said, we've never been close. She works as a freelance writer and has done a lot of work on the safety of Rufo, making me nervous that the court will believe her instead of me, even though she wasn't really an expert.
You said that she was a freelance writer. What type of stuff has she written about?
Yeah, she's written about all these crazy things like UFOs, the flat earth theory, and chemtrails.
Thanks. Let's turn to another subject. What was your job? What did you do outside of school?
Haven Landscaping was my previous job. I worked at Haven. I worked as a landscaping technician over at Haven since I was 14 years old, so all through high school. So Haven and piano were really my only other priorities outside of school.
How did you interact with the chemical Rufo at Havenly Landscaping?
Well, as I said, I was only 14 years old, and I wasn't old enough to use the big machinery, so I was responsible for spreading the fertilizer and seed.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your work experience over the years?
Yeah, I love my job, but it was really hot, too hot to wear protective clothing, but I can assure you I wasn't the only one doing so. Yeah, I was told several times to wear the correct items to protect my skin, but as I said, it was just too hot. And of course, if I'd known that Lush Fertilizer could cause cancer, I would have worn the protective gear all the time.
Did you have a good relationship with your boss at Havenly Landscaping?
I did, yeah. When I found out that Lush fertilizer could cause cancer, he actually sent me a picture of an old fertilizer package.
Why doesn't your twin Skylar work there?
She's allergic to grass.
Thank you. You said that you and your father did some research on Lush. Could you tell us a little bit about what you learned?
Yeah, excuse me. I was watching TV one day and I saw something about Lush fertilizer and their main ingredient, Rufo. Someone had leaked documents which revealed the company lied about the safety of its drugs. And I was surprised because I remember working with this fertilizer very often. So I quickly called my father after seeing the article. I also contacted my former boss to tell them about the product and asked him to send me a picture of the packaging to see if it was the one I was using, and it was.
Your Honor, I would like to move to admit Exhibit 1 into evidence.
From the defense?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 1 will be admitted.
Your Honor, do I have permission to screen share this exhibit?
You may do so.
Ms. Weirs, may you please turn to Exhibit 1 and describe what it is?
Yeah, Exhibit 1 just shows a Lush fertilizer label.
Is this an accurate label?
Yeah, this is the label that my boss over at Haven sent to me when I asked him for it.
How do you recognize it?
I remember this is the exact label that I used while working at Haven.
What exactly does the label show on it?
The ingredients are listed, but there are no warnings. Well, I mean, I guess there are warnings about my eyes, but I don't really know how a mask would help my eyes.
What about the other fertilizers at Haven Landscaping? Were they labeled with warnings?
They were.
Thanks. Let's move on to why you are here. Do you need the money?
Well, no, I'm not here because of the money. I'm here to stop the production of Lush fertilizer so no one else can end up like me. First and foremost, no one should have to suffer like I've suffered. My poor father shouldn't have to pay for everything for the rest of my life. And I want to make sure that no one has to suffer like this. And as you can tell, I can't even answer these questions without having to take several breaths throughout. I got into Juilliard, but I can't even sit for 10 minutes because it hurts.
You are a 20-year-old with cancer. How does that make you feel?
I feel lost, and I don't know what the future will hold. My life has been ruined, and I'm depressed. I just want them to stop. I want this all to stop, and what they've done to me, and who knows who else they've done this to. And I don't know if I'll have a future or how soon I may die. Lush fertilizer's taking it away.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes. Ms. Weirs, do you ever work with the landscaping company?
Yeah, I worked with Haven Landscaping since I was 14 years old.
Did you work with fertilizers that contained any dangerous chemicals?
They all had pretty much the same chemicals, except all of them were missing Drufo.
Is it true that you were supposed to handle the fertilizers with chemicals with care and wear protective clothing and stuff?
I was, yeah.
Did you follow these instructions?
Objection, Your Honor.
Go ahead. Objection?
Compound question.
Any response?
No response.
I'll just have you rephrase the question.
Is it true that you were supposed to handle these chemicals with care?
I was, yes.
Were you supposed to wear protective long sleeves and other stuff like that?
Yeah.
Did you follow these instructions?
No, I didn't. But it was over 100 degrees outside. It was too hot to be wearing long sleeves.
Do you think a sensible person would have listened to the safety recommendations and worn a protective shirt?
Maybe if there was a label that it could kill you on it.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Weirs, would you have worn the protective clothing if you knew that the product you were using could cause cancer?
Would I have worn the protective clothing? Do you not think I think about that every single day and that I should have just worn the protective clothing? And if I did, I wouldn't be here today with cancer. Of course, I would have worn the clothing. That's all I ever think about every minute of every single day. Is it my fault? I don't know, but If I had known that this is where it would be, I would have worn the protective clothing, of course.
Thank you. Your Honor, no further questions.
Thank you. And does the plaintiff wish to call any additional witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Let me turn then at this time to the defense and ask if you're prepared to call your first witness.
I would like to call Blake Duncourt to the stand.
Thank you. And you can begin when you're ready.
Can you say your name and spell the last?
Yes, of course. My name is Blake Duncourt, Doncourt.
Why are you here today?
Well, I'm here today because people believe that I have failed to put warning label on my product, and in return, a young girl got cancer from it.
Tell me a little bit about your company that you're so proud of.
Well, my company is a big fertilizing company that almost everyone in America uses. It gives the American dream to make green grass. I mean, who wouldn't want green grass?
You've said you've done research between the link between Drufo and non-Hodgkin lymphoma. What did this research show?
It showed no harmful connections in humans.
Would you have put a warning on the package if it did show a harmful connection?
Of course, what kind of question is that? Of course, I would have put a warning label on the product. I don't want any harm to come to anybody.
Onto a different line of questioning. How do you feel about former employee Carson Durst's claims?
I love Carson like he was my own son. And I am deeply saddened about him falsely accusing my company of knowing that there were carcinogens in Drufo.
What did professional Dr. Williams' research show about Drufo?
I don't believe that it showed anything that had anything to do with carcinogens in Drufo.
Objection? Speculation?
Any response?
No response.
All right. Court at this time will overrule.
That's all, Your Honor.
And cross-examination.
You are currently the CEO of Lush Fertilizer,
Yes, that's correct.
and you actually founded the company, right?
Yes.
You actually had to go out and get venture capitalists to help you start up this company.
Yeah.
You've put in tons of work and effort into building up your company, right?
I have. I mean, to start a business, it takes so much time.
And you believe there are no cancer-causing chemicals in your product?
I do.
Isn't it true that you do not bake your fertilizer?
That is true, yes.
Even though you knew there could be extra safety benefits, you still do not bake it, correct?
Yes, because there posed no harm to humans, so there was no need to bake Drufo.
Is it correct that Dr. Williams did a study on the effect or on the carcinogenicness of your products?
Yes.
And are you sure that the results came back true, that there were no carcinogens in Lush?
Yes, I
am. Ms. Doncourt, earlier you testified that there were in fact carcinogens, but just a very slim amount of them that were not important enough. Is that true?
I do not recall that. Is there something you have?
In your witness statement, you testify that the harms were slim enough that it was not necessary to bake your fertilizer?
Yes, that I did say that. That is true.
So you're saying there's an insignificant health risk?
Yes.
But it's not significant to you because you aren't the one using the product, right?
I'm sorry if I don't understand.
This insignificant health risk is not significant to you because you are not the one handling the product, right?
Yes.
So wouldn't you have to agree that any health risk would be significant to the people who were there day after day providing the fertilizer to the gardens and farms in this community?
Yes, but if there was, then I would have put a warning label on my product.
But you acknowledge that there was an insignificant health risk,
Yes,
but not significant enough to bake your fertilizer.
that is correct, yes.
Even though you knew there could be extra safety benefits, you still did not bake it.
Yes, there was no need.
You say that baking fertilizer is costly, is that true?
Yes, it costs a lot of money, that is true. And I have employees to pay, bills to pay, and there was just no need to bake it. So I didn't see the
Thank you.
need to spend
Yes.
all that money.
You acknowledge that you increased your profits by not baking the fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
Ms. Doncourt, what is Exhibit 8? Would you
Exhibit
like me to
8.
pull up a copy for you?
Yes, please.
Your Honor, do I have permission to screen share Exhibit 8?
You may.
Thank you. Sorry, let me flip this so that you can see it. This is a copy of your financial table. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
And you drafted this yourself, right?
I did, yes.
Your Honor, I would like to enter Exhibit 8 into evidence.
Position from defense.
No objection.
Exhibit 8 will be admitted.
Thank you. If you take a look at this table, you were making around $1.6 million in 2004 by cutting out the baking process. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And if you also look at it, by incorporating the baking process, you would have in fact made $1.4 million instead of 1.6. Is that true?
I'm sorry, could you point that out for me?
Yes. On the first line, it says right there 1.6 in 2004. And if you go over to the right, then it says 1.4, which is what you would have made if you did not bake your fertilizer.
Yes, I can see that.
Ms. Doncourt, you are the sole owner of your company, so that money is your money, right?
Yes, but I use that money to pay my employees and the bills and everything.
Thank you, yes. In fact, this number continued to increase over the period of 10 years, is that right?
Yes, my company is very successful.
But in 2004, you don't think $1.4 million is enough to be making?
There was no need to bake Drufo, so
But
no.
But $1.4 million, was that not enough to be making?
Well, if you have a business, you'd want to make more money, and if there's no need
Ms.
to
Doncourt,
spend that
could
amount
you
of
please give me a
money.
yes or no answer?
I was getting to that. I was just trying to tell you.
Okay, thank you. But could you answer my question? Is $1.4 million not enough to be making in 2004? Yes or no?
It could be.
Your Honor, could you please ask Ms. Doncourt to give me a yes or no answer?
Any response from the defense?
No objection.
Not sure that that really calls for a yes or no answer, but I'll instruct the witness to answer the question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
If you want to go ahead and re-ask that for the witness.
Ms. Doncourt, you don't think $1.4 million is enough to be making in 2004?
It could be, but I'd want to make more money.
Okay, thank you. So you testified that you needed those additional profits to pay back the investors. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
Let's talk about your financial situation. Isn't it true that you're also paying your ex-spouse a significant amount of money every month?
Yes, but I'm not sure what she has to do with anything.
And you guys usually share a lake house, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, you're also supporting your new partner, correct?
Yeah.
And you're making contributions to charity?
10%.
So, despite all this money that you apparently have and spend, you decided not to bake Drufo to be able to repay your investors, right?
Well, I had to pay everybody. I own a company.
Yes, thank you. No further questions at this time.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. This time then, let me ask if the defense wishes to call an additional witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense would like to call Skylar Weirs to the stand.
Thank you. And you can begin when you're ready.
Please state and spell your name for the jury.
My name is Skylar Weirs, Weirs.
Why are you here today?
I am here today to testify as an expert witness on behalf of Lush Fertilizer because I know from my research that their products are safe.
And what authority do you have to be an expert witness?
I am an investigative journalist and I write about between individual health and corporate policy. My editor for The Rationalist chose me to write a series of articles about modern agritech, and for that, I wrote about Drufo.
Your Honor, I move to enter Skylar Weirs as an expert witness in the fields of experience in modern agritech.
Position from the plaintiff?
Your Honor, permission to do a voir dire.
You may.
Miss Weirs, you didn't go to college, correct?
No, I did not.
And you never got a formal education in agritech?
No.
And journalism, no formal education?
No.
You didn't go to medical school?
No.
And you've never treated anybody in a clinic?
No, but I do not see what that has to do with modern agritech.
And you weren't even a part of your school newspaper?
No.
Your Honor, I object to Rule 702. The witness is just someone who searched the internet, and that's her sole qualification. She lacks sufficient background.
In response?
She has spent 2 years researching upon Drufo and all about Lush's products. And I believe that she has enough experience in the fact that she does understand what she is doing.
And any final reply?
I stand on my objection.
I think that this was ruled on in a pre-trial matter, if I'm not mistaken. The court at this time will find that the witness does have some information and expertise in these areas, and at this time will overrule the objection and so qualify the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Weirs, what type of information does The Rationalist produce?
Well, The Rationalist is a quarterly science education and science advocacy magazine where we encourage our readers to ask questions and intelligent.
What's the objection?
Relevance.
Any response?
Yes, Your Honor. The relevance is that I'm getting to how she is an expert, and this will help and benefit and show that she is experienced, and it'll benefit in the long run.
Any reply?
Your Honor, this is just about the place that she works at and has nothing to do with the truth of the matter.
Court does find that there's some relevance for the court's determination and will overrule the objection. You can continue.
Ms. Weirs, would you like me to restate the question?
Yes, please.
What type of information does The Rationalist produce?
As I was saying, The Rationalist is a quarterly science education and science advocacy magazine where we encourage our readers to ask questions about the jargon and rhetoric.
Thank you. And what environmentally friendly aspects does Drufo have?
Well, Drufo bonds to both the grass and Lush fertilizers active ingredients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium.
What's the objection?
Foundation.
Response?
What do you mean? Can I get more of an explanation on why it's foundation from the plaintiff?
Plaintiff, do you wish to expand on your?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense jumped right into their questioning about Drufo and never had any leading questions to base more foundation.
Any response with that?
No.
Court will overrule the objection. You can continue.
Thank you. Ms. Weirs, may you continue?
Yes. So as I was saying, Drufo helps so that these ingredients aren't washed away as quickly. So then Drufo only needs to be applied once or twice a year, while other common fertilizers have to be applied 5 to 6 times per year.
And does Drufo do anything more for like the fertilizer's solubility, or does it contaminate any water?
So,
Objection.
Drufo,
Compound question.
Any response?
No, Your Honor, that was my fault.
Court will just have you rephrase.
Okay. Ms. Weirs, does Lush's fertilizer do anything to contaminate groundwater?
no, because Drufo reduces the solubility of Lush fertilizer. The nitrogen in this product is less likely to contaminate groundwater.
Why do you believe that Drufo is not the cause of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Well, the research on whether Drufo causes cancer, like non-Hodgkin lymphoma,
Objection.
is
Beyond the scope of her personal knowledge.
Response?
She has experience in this field and and this is through other studies that other witnesses will show you later on. This is just starting to tell you how the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is not caused by Drufo.
Any additional reply?
Your Honor, the witness is not qualified to be giving her opinion on this matter.
Court will note the objection, but will overrule. You can continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Weirs, may you continue?
As I was saying, there's a much clearer link between other pesticides and cancer, like the International Agency for Research on Cancer categorizes arsenic as a carcinogen for humans, which is commonly found in other fertilizers.
Thank you. How has Lush helped agricultural communities?
Objection.
Well, Lush
Beyond the scope.
Response?
This is not beyond the scope because this is helping Lush. It's a public thing where Blake Duncourt does contribute to agricultural communities.
Any final reply? Oh, I apologize. Any final reply?
Your Honor, Ms. Weirs does not work at Lush, nor does she have any formal work connections. Therefore, she cannot testify on behalf of the company.
Court would note she was qualified as an expert in the agrotech area and will overrule the objection. You can continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Weirs, would you like me to rephrase that question?
Yes, please.
How has Lush helped agricultural communities?
Lush Fertilizer's CEO Blake Doncourt started a charity to clean the dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico and other oceans, which are directly caused by the overuse of fertilizer that doesn't contain an effective bonding agent like Drufo.
Ms. Weirs, does your family support you and your research?
Objection.
No.
Beyond the scope.
Response?
This is not beyond the scope. It's for her family. This whole case is for Dakota Weirs, and this is her twin, sorry. So this should not be beyond the scope because it is part of their family.
Court will overrule the objection.
Ms. Weirs, does your family support you and your research?
No, they do not. My father was none too pleased when I decided to not go to college, and my sister believes I am in this for the money, but I am sincerely sorry for her sickness, but it is not due to Lush Fertilizer.
Objection.
Go ahead.
I take it back, Your Honor.
Understood. Court will withdraw the objection. You can continue.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Ms. Weirs, you work as a journalist. Is this correct?
Yes.
And you work for the Rationalist magazine?
Yes.
Which is devoted to promoting scientific skepticism?
Yes.
And resisting the spread of pseudoscience?
Yes.
And superstition?
Yes.
And irrational beliefs?
Yes.
Yet, Ms. Weirs, you've written about UFOs.
I have.
And you've published on the flat earth theory?
Yes.
And chemical trails, correct?
Yes.
Objection.
the objection? Go ahead.
Relevance.
Response?
This just shows her expertise and she is not and this just shows why she should not be an expert.
Any additional reply?
Yes, Your Honor. This part of the article, these articles that she has written are scientific skepticism, and they are still something that she should write upon, but she has also written upon more serious matters like the case we are in today.
Court will allow the questions to go to her credibility. You can continue. Objection overruled.
Ms. Weirs, you've been brought in as an expert on this case.
Yes.
And as you've already told us, you didn't graduate from college.
No, I did not.
You're currently working at Applebee's?
Yes, as a part-time job.
Objection. Relevance.
Response?
Again, this goes to her credibility, Your Honor.
And any additional reply?
Why would this be credibility? She's earning money in other ways so that she can support her career of writing.
You can address that on the redirect, but the court will allow that and court will overrule the objection.
You're working as a server at Applebee's, correct?
Yes.
Okay, moving on. You stated your father cut you off because you didn't go to college.
Yes, that is true.
And as far as you know, your sister Dakota is still receiving funds from your father?
Yes, as far as I know.
Being cut off, in your opinion, could lead to financial hardship?
I mean, in any situation it could, yes.
You also mentioned you were in a financial slump due to gambling on March Madness, correct?
Yes.
You got into sports gambling because you were unable to play sports.
Yes, I have a grass allergy.
And due to your grass allergy, you were unable to work at Haven Landscaping like your sister?
Yes, that is true.
About your sister, she's your fraternal twin.
Yes, she is.
And you yourself have not been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
No, I have not.
And Dakota worked in the agricultural profession, right?
Yes, she did.
And you didn't.
Correct.
Is it fair to say Dakota has been exposed to more Drufo than you?
Yes, that is fair to say.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your research. You are not aware with any level of certainty that any study has established a causal link between Drufo and cancer.
Can you repeat that?
You are not aware of any study that has established a causal link between Drufo and cancer with any level of certainty.
Yes.
You heard our expert, Dr. Rogers, testify about the year-long study she performed on the effects of Drufo on human rights.
Yes, I did.
And that was published in The Environmentalist in 2019?
Yes.
Your Honor, permission to screen share Exhibit 7.
You may do so.
Sorry, there are some technical difficulties. Can we pause the clock, Your Honor?
Court will still pause for a moment. There we go. Court will go ahead and resume the clock.
Ms. Weirs, can you please read along the title of the fifth publication? Ms.
The
Weirs?
evidence of human exposure to Drufo, a review, The Environmentalist.
And also, you didn't mention the UK rat study that Carson Durst found, did you?
Can you repeat that question? I can't hear you.
You didn't mention the UK rat study that Carson Durst found?
No, I did not.
But you didn't find any of this in your 2-year long of research, did you?
No.
You would consider, moving on, you would consider modern day agricultural products to be risky.
Yes.
All pesticides and herbicides are by definition poison.
Yes.
And their intended function is to kill.
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Weirs, You are going against your sibling in this case. Does this case have any positive or negative impacts for your life?
Well, as I said before, I love my sister dearly. And even though I do not stand beside her today, even if she wins, we could both benefit because money will come to our family either way this court goes. So I am not biased in any way through money.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you, Ms. Spears.
Thank you. Does the defense wish to call any additional witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Dr. Devin Williams to the stand.
Thank you. And when you're ready, you can begin.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the jury.
My name is Devin Williams, Williams.
And what is your current employment status?
I'm currently employed at Lush Fertilizer. I lead the toxicology research and development labs, and I'm the outgoing chair of the committee's ethics community.
And how long has this been your job?
I've been working at Lush for roughly a decade and working at the toxicology labs for about 7 years.
What education do you have relevant to the topic?
I completed my undergrad PhD at CSU Fort Collins, and I also did a specialized post-PhD program at the University of Utah in pharmacotoxicology.
May my co-counsel please share Exhibit 9 on the screen?
You may.
Dr. Williams, do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes, I do.
And what is this exhibit?
This is my CV.
Has this document been altered or changed in any way?
No, it is not.
Your Honor, may I please enter Exhibit 9 into evidence?
Position from the plaintiff?
Objection, hearsay.
Any response?
Could you elaborate on how this is hearsay?
This is an out-of-court statement.
Anything additional from defense?
Yes, this shows the qualifications and education of Dr. Devin Williams and relates to their character.
Court will note the objection, but will allow the exhibit. Exhibit 9 is admitted.
Thank you. Dr. Williams, what is Drufo?
Drufo is a bonding agent in Lush Fertilizer's products.
My co-counsel, you can stop sharing your screen. Thank you. And what is Drufo's job in fertilizer?
Drufo binds the ingredients in the fertilizer to the grass and other plants on which it's sprayed. As a result, less fertilizer needs to be sprayed, meaning that less washes away into the soil.
And what positive effects does Drufo have?
Drufo is significantly better for the environment. It reduces the amount of nitrate runoff since less is needed.
And what are nitrogen's negative effects on the environment?
The bacteria in the soil transforms the nitrogen into nitrates. It's carried into different bodies of water, and the nitrate then accumulates in said water, which leads to dense algae growing. This algae cuts off the oxygen in the water, which kills fish, and it also produces bacteria that is harmful to humans.
So, moving on, is Drufo banned anywhere?
Yes, a complaint was filed in this lawsuit, actually, that notes that Drufo was banned in France. And while that is true, Drufo is actually banned in the entire EU.
And why is Drufo banned?
It's banned not because of the concerns of the risk on cancer, but under the EU's nitrate directive. No new fertilizer formulations can be used that contribute more to the incidental nitrate accumulation in lab tests.
How does Drufo affect the company?
Drufo is cost effective, good for the environment, and is overall a great product that has helped our company progress and evolve.
And how does it affect your customers?
It enhances the growth of plants and yards and requires yet less application than regular fertilizers.
Okay. What was the purpose of the experiment you conducted between Drufo and non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
It was to try and find a possible correlation between Drufo and non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
And can you explain the groups that you tested / monitored in this experiment?
Sure. My study contained farmers and laborers who used fertilizer that contained Drufo and a group who were not exposed to Drufo, rather different fertilizers. They both still worked in the same environments, though.
And what does the data show about users of Drufo fertilizers compared to users of other fertilizers having an elevated risk for non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
If we look at the incident rate of non-Hodgkin lymphoma in groups of people who have used fertilizers with Drufo and compare that to the incident rate of people who have used different fertilizers without Drufo, you'll see a small number of them will develop non-Hodgkin lymphoma either way. To know if Drufo is truly the cause, you'll have to account for the random element.
And can you explain what the random element is?
Sure. You cannot always be positive if Drufo was the cause of cancer. People maybe would have developed it either way without Drufo in these products.
And what was the final result of your experiment?
All the data that we looked at shows consistency of users of products with Drufo not having an elevated risk of cancer and non-Hodgkin lymphoma. To be more specific, when we compare the users of other fertilizers, there's the same risk in those fertilizers as there are with fertilizers with Drufo.
So why do you keep comparing users of fertilizers with Drufo as to users of fertilizers that don't have Drufo?
Because if you want valid, accurate results from a study, it is necessary to compare similar things. If you compare two totally different things, it doesn't make for a valid conclusion. Lush and other fertilizers are very similar. The only difference is that one includes Drufo and the other does not.
Could you explain what is wrong with Dr. Rogers' experiment?
Dr. Rogers supposedly looked at exposure to Drufo from farm laborers compared to casual gardeners and compared to people who didn't have any exposure to Drufo whatsoever. That is comparing two different circumstances which have many other factors than exposure to Drufo. They're confounding variables and they may affect the final results.
And
Sorry, was there an objection?
Objection narrative.
Any response?
I would not say that was narrative, as the witness just explained the answer to the one question.
And any additional reply to the objection?
She was just asked a simple question and she was going on for too long.
Court will overrule the objection. You can continue with your next question.
Based on your research, what is the relationship between Drufo and non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
There isn't one.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Dr. Williams.
Good afternoon.
So you've spent the last several years studying the effects of toxic chemicals on deceased humans as a medical examiner before you were at Lush, right?
That is correct.
But you never studied how Drufo affected humans before or during your 12 years at Lush, right?
Not personally, no.
You said on line 17 in your witness statement, I know how to tell if a substance is going to harm the average human and how to neutralize that harm if it happens, but you didn't do that with Drufo, right?
I'm a bit confused by that question. Could you please rephrase?
You said on line 17 in your witness statement, I know how to tell if a substance is going to harm the average human and how to neutralize that harm if it happens, but you did not do that with the chemical Drufo.
I still don't understand what you mean. That phrasing wasn't very different.
Let's move on. You didn't do this because the CEO of Lush Fertilizer told you to keep the products, quote, industry leading and cost effective, as you say in your—
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Response?
May I have a moment to speak with my co-counsel?
You may.
This is not hearsay, Your Honor, because the witness has already testified about this.
Any additional reply?
Yes, Your Honor. So this witness has not directly talked about this quote from her boss, and the boss should not be included in this line of questioning.
Court is going to overrule the objection. You can continue.
Okay. You have also done various data analysis, right?
Yes.
But you only study data and statistics in reference to non-Hodgkin's and Drufo, right?
I did study data and statistics in reference to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and Drufo, yes.
So that's a yes. Okay. You chose that method over studying the effects on humans, though, right?
I suppose so.
You've disagreed with Dr. Rogers' study because it wasn't peer-reviewed or replicated, right?
Correct.
You never studied the effects of Drufo on humans in your 12 years being with the company Lush Fertilizer.
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
Response?
May I rephrase my question?
You may.
You've never studied the effects of Drufo on humans in your 12 years of being with the company, but at least Dr. Rogers spent 4 years studying this chemical. Isn't that right?
Dr. Rogers did spend time studying the chemical, yes, and I personally
Objection,
did not
Your
study.
Honor. Argumentative question.
Response?
May I have a minute to speak with my co-counsel?
You may.
Your Honor, this is not argumentative because I was just rephrasing a simple question.
Any additional reply?
Yes, the attorney was asking my witness to accept her conclusion of the two studies.
Court will overrule the, actually, court's going to sustain, but just ask you to rephrase the question.
Let's just move on. You could have replicated Dr. Rogers' study, but your company chose to only study it for 2 months. Isn't that right?
Dr. Rogers' study wasn't replicated at all.
But you could have replicated that study.
I could have, yes, but I was busy leading the toxicology labs. I didn't exactly have time.
You didn't have time to replicate a study that could have shown that your product was deadly. Is that what you're saying?
I was a little bit leading the toxicology labs.
Okay. Lastly, you criticized Dr. Rogers' study based on exposures that other people had, correct?
What do you mean exposures that other people had?
You criticized her study because there were other variables.
Yes.
But it is impossible to take any human and know all the toxins they've been exposed to. Isn't that right?
Of course.
Thank you. Your Honor, no further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Devin Williams, could you please explain to the jury and to the judge why your study was different from Casey Rogers' study?
The difference between my study and Dr. Rogers' study is that my study compared two things that are very similar, whereas with Dr. Rogers' study, he compared casual gardeners to farmers. One group works with fertilizer so much, and the other barely works with it at all. Additionally, he compared it to people who didn't use fertilizer at all. That's comparing very different things.
And is there any chance of cross-contamination in the study that you did?
I suppose there could be, but it's highly unlikely.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. And does the defense have any additional witnesses they wish to call?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. This time, then let's go ahead and move into our closing arguments. Let me turn first to the plaintiff for your initial closing argument.
We are here today because Dakota Weirs does not get to live out her dream to attend Juilliard. She does not get to sit on a piano bench anymore. She suffers from crippling depression, and she had trouble even getting here today, all because of Lush Fertilizer and their desire to make more money. Today you heard first from Carson Durst, who worked at Lush Fertilizer, who told you that Lush Fertilizer knew about the risks of Drufo. She worked there during the time that they were developing Drufo, and she watched as all of the employees and managers completely ignored the warning signs that they were receiving from the researchers. She told us about how they decided to leave out the baking process because they didn't think it was worthy of their time and money. She even told us that when she looked at the final report of Drufo, that they had actually left off several of the warnings and disclaimers. Outside of work, Ms. Doncourt and Ms. Durst were also family friends. So she knew that Miss Doncourt was having personal issues, making her more frantic to get Drufel on the market because she needed to make more money. Next, you heard from our expert, Dr. Casey Rogers, who spent years studying the effects of Drufel on humans and found out that regular exposure to Drufel made a person 10 times more likely to get cancer than someone who was never exposed. Dr. Rogers spent years studying this, while Lush could only be bothered to study it for 2 months out of their 18 years. You also heard from Blake Doncourt, whose greed is the reason that Dakota is sick. She told you that she didn't bake her fertilizer because baking fertilizer is costly. And you also heard about all of the financial strains on Blake Doncourt at the same time. She was going through a divorce, she had a new spouse, and on top of all of that, she was spending 10% of her profits on environmental issues, just in the hopes of gaining recognition. If she had slowed down to listen to her researchers or cared enough to bake her fertilizer, then we would not be here today. And finally, you heard from Dakota Weirs, who was a healthy teenage girl when she began working for Lush Fertilizer. She described how she began feeling sick all the time. She had chest pains. She often felt fatigued. She explained that this was all right before she was getting ready to leave to attend Juilliard on a full scholarship. And you all have learned today that this product is banned in several other countries. Do you really believe the European Union would ban a product that is as safe and as revolutionary as Lush claims it is? No one wants to be here today talking about a 20-year-old with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Blake Doncourt definitely does not want to be here today facing the fact that his company caused cancer, and especially my client, Dakota Weirs. Dakota wants to be at Juilliard. She wants to be playing the piano and sitting on the piano bench. You heard from several witnesses that Lush ignored all of the warning signals. It didn't publish the research because they wanted to rush their product to the market, all because they were focused on making money and not safety. Today is a day that they need to be held accountable for what they have done. Ladies and gentlemen, we are asking you to hold them accountable by awarding Dakota with $2,615,553. This number is the cost that Lush would have paid over 10 years if they had just bothered to bake the Drufel. We believe this is a fair ask of you because this is just a small fraction of the profits the Lush got to keep because they did not care about the safety of their workers. In 2004, when Blake made the financial table analyzing the cost of baking Drufel, he decided then how much Dakota's life was worth. We are asking you to hold Lush Fertilizer responsible and find in favor of Dakota Weirs.
Thank you. And let me ask at this time if the defense wishes to make a closing argument.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. You can begin when you're ready.
Thank you. May it please the court. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you all for sitting in and viewing this trial. There are a lot of views in this case, but these views should not be put in place of the truth. The truth to this case is simple. A woman developed an illness that could have been stopped through PPE and the safety recommendations. She blamed Lush Fertilizer for her illness, even though there is not enough information to blame Drufel. This chemical Drufel has been researched and is not factually connected to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Ms. Weirs worked with and around not only Drufel, but other harmful chemicals. Ms. Weirs did not take the proper safety precautions that her previous job asked her to do. Ms. Weirs took her illness and disregarded all claims against her belief that Drufel caused it. The research that has been shown tells us that Drufel was not the cause of this illness. The plaintiff has shown us 3 witnesses. They start with Dakota Weirs, who is in, yes, a very tragic position, but she did not take the recommended protective precautions to stay safe. Then there was Dr. Casey Rogers, who's an experienced doctor, but she's trained in chemistry, not in carcinogens or toxicology. Finally, Carson Durst, who was fired from the Doncourt family's company, Lush. Our witnesses started off with Blake Doncourt, the owner of Lush. She is given 10% of her profits to reducing nitrogen contamination in groundwater agricultural communities. Then Skylar Weirs, Dakota's own sibling, came forward with facts because she knew it was the right thing to do. She didn't care about the money. All she wanted was the right information to be known. Dr. Devin Williams was our final witness. witness, and she explained that Drufo being the only cause of Dakota's illness was improbable. Ladies and gentlemen, my co-counsel and I would like for you all to look for the truth. After everything both sides have said, I hope you have seen the truth of this case and will now vote in our favor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Plaintiff reserved time or reserved the request then to do a rebuttal closing. With any time remaining, court will allow that rebuttal at this time. You can proceed when you're ready.
Instead of taking responsibility, the defense wants you to blame Dakota. They want you to believe that their insufficient and vague warning was enough to ensure that everyone would use protective gear. But there is nothing on the package that states you could get cancer from this product. Let me ask you this. After sitting through this evidence today, do you think anybody would send their daughter out to work in a field with Drufo, with lush fertilizer containing Drufo? How about their brother or their best friend? The answer is no. The answer is no because Lush Fertilizer did a short-term, incomplete study of Drufo before putting it in their fertilizer. The answer is no because even with the research that Lush did do, they disregarded the warning signs that came up in their research. And the answer is no because Blake Doncourt was more concerned with saving money than making sure that his fertilizer was safe. As you decide on whether or not to hold Lush Fertilizer accountable for what has occurred, remember that Dakota Weirs may not be your daughter or best friend, but she was the one who was sent into those fields to work with Lush and now with Drufo, and now her life is changed forever. Thank you.
Thank you. And at that time, then, the court will conclude the trial. Mr. Matisse, I'm going to kind of turn to you for a second in terms of where we go next, and I apologize.
Well, I'm as a scoring panelist, I've already turned my scores in, so I'm ready to critique if the other scoring panelists are ready as well.
If you can give me one moment, I just needed to finish the last couple of scores for the closing, and then I can get that submitted and we'll be ready to go. And I believe mine has been submitted. So I think that's taken care of.
Your Honor, if you'd like me to begin with the critique, I'd be glad to.
Go right ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank all of the participants. I think there was obviously an incredible amount of work put into this, especially the witnesses having to memorize these statements and these facts. And it seemed like from my observation here that the witnesses did a great job of getting all those facts right. And I didn't see too much in the way of impeachment, which speaks volumes for the witness not being impeached. Couple of little things that I just wanted to point out. One is that frequently when you're doing cross-examinations, it's good to use predominantly, if not exclusively, leading questions. And I think we saw those of you that use leading questions tended to really cut to the chase on cross-examination, and those that didn't sometimes didn't get the answer that exactly you wanted. You had the witness arguing with you a little more. So consider using leading questions when you're doing your cross-examinations. In terms of objections, that's always a tough one for attorneys. And I think that before you make an objection, you need to think two things. Number one, am I going to win the objection? Because the one thing you don't want is you don't want the judge to overrule your objection and then you look bad for the jury. The second question is it really necessary for me to make the objection? Because sometimes it's a minor point and it's really not a big deal, and you don't want to look like someone that's going to be trying to hide the truth from the jury. So I think you need to be a little more strategic, some of you, with some of your objections. In terms of the presentations, I thought that they did nicely. They got to the point of everything. Closing arguments, I thought were good in that they summarized the key points on both sides. A couple of little pointers that might get you some more points in the future. One is try to use in the closing arguments, not in the opening. The opening, you're just giving a statement, a preview of the testimony. But in the closing arguments, try to use the elements that you have to prove for your case and why you satisfy each of those elements. I think that makes it nice and simple for the jury to understand. Similarly, if you're on the defense, you want to explain the elements that were not proved and why, very simply. And then also, if you do choose to reserve some of your time for rebuttal, I think it's really important that that you really directly address what the defendant said in their closing arguments and immediately just go right after it, because that's much more powerful than simply summarizing your case again in the rebuttal. And similarly, another thing is, I know you like to you want to make sure you cover everything, so you typically outline your closing arguments, but try to sometimes use some of the information that a witness gives you as a gift, because that's really powerful. I mean, for example, the testimony of Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams had no choice but to admit that that the company never bothered to replicate, the study, or even attempted to replicate the study of Casey Rogers. And I think that's pretty powerful, because you could use something like that in the closing argument. It was too much trouble to try to replicate the study that showed that there was cancer, there was lymphoma, and now they would rather market their product instead of that. So that was good. I also like the fact that the plaintiff chose for the dollar amount they were seeking was the excess profits that were earned by not baking the product. So I thought that was a good use of it. But overall, I enjoyed it. I thought everyone did a great job. Thank you.
I guess I'll go kind of next here and talk a little bit about my comments. First off, thank you so much for just letting me even participate in this. It was fantastic getting to see all of you doing this. And I kind of echo some of the comments by Mr. Matisse in terms of just the amount of time and effort that goes into this, and you preparing all of this is impressive, and I appreciate all of that. I want to say in particular to the witnesses, I really enjoyed the fact that you were kind of emoting. There were some people who were willing to get a little emotional, get a little feisty. There were some individuals who presented, I'll say in particular, I think it was Dr. Devin, who kind of came across very professional and kind of in a sterner tone. And so it was really nice to see kind of that wave between everybody. And that goes across the board for both plaintiff and defense witnesses. I thought they did a good job of really kind of trying to fit into that character. I would echo again too, sometimes with the objections, it's a hard scenario, especially even as a judge, because it's not entirely realistic to a courtroom, but it is. So I want to make sure that you guys get an opportunity to really present your case. And I thought you did a good job with the objections. Be ready with those responses though, so that you make sure that you're really arguing against what the other side has presented as the reason why this shouldn't come in. I know it's tougher because you're kind of, those are the ones where you're flying a little bit more by the seat of your pants, or and so it's hard sometimes to get your thoughts collected, but be ready for those. You kind of know which ones are coming, and that's helpful for the court. Sometimes you might agree with one of the sides, and then you hear that other argument and you're like, oh, nope, persuaded me the other way. So be ready to argue, and don't always just throw in your hand on that, and be ready to give the judge a good reason. I thought though everybody did a really great job. I would say overall the biggest thing, and I know you guys are on a time crunch, but slow down a little bit so that we can really hear everything that you're saying and you get to absorb it. I know that you have these, I don't want to call them scripts, but the facts laid out for you so you know or anticipate what the other side is saying. But sometimes you want to give that effect of letting something sink in, or really getting to punch a certain fact when they give it to you. And if you're really stuck on your script, you don't hear what they're answering. You just expect the answer to be what it is. I think Mr. Matisse kind of pointed that out, that there were a couple of jewels that were given by some of the witnesses, and we kind of miss them because we're going so fast with our script that you don't get the opportunity to really pounce on something that somebody says. I thought everybody did a fantastic job, though. Everybody was really well prepared. And thank you again for letting me be part of this. Miranda, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything.
Yeah, I'll just jump in for a sec. First, I thought everybody did a really great job. You guys were clearly very prepared, and I know that this is the last round after many rounds, and so you guys are all probably a little tired as well. I think that the one point that I just would agree on as well is when it comes to kind of slowing down, sometimes even that can just be a pause, you know, and taking a pause before and to kind of gather yourself there before the next thing that you're going to say, because that allows us as listeners to really, you know, catch up to where you guys are at. And then I think it provides for a more cohesive response. And I know for me, I'm someone who will just keep talking when I start feeling anxiety. And I think I could see a few people who I was like, oh, they're like me, and they do that. And so I think I would just say maybe try to take a pause. But really, I thought everyone was really well prepared. I think you guys did a fantastic job. And I always enjoyed getting to volunteer for this and see you guys come out and do it. So thank you so much for letting me participate today as well.
Great job, everybody. I'm not sure whether or not we have a kind of a room monitor in here, or honestly, I'm not sure what instructions to give you guys with this being the last round. I think everybody's just waiting for all of the scores and other rounds to finish up.
That's right, Your Honor. At this point, everybody can be discharged. The students will come back shortly for all the announcements of the final standings. But in terms of this round, whenever you deem appropriate, everybody can be excused.
Right.
Thanks.
With that, did anybody have any questions or anything? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and let you go at this point in time, and good luck. And hopefully we'll see everybody next year as well.
No, but thank you so much, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And everyone.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I have a question, sorry. Where are we supposed to come back to?
Sorry, I misspoke. You guys aren't going to come back to a lounge. The final announcements are going to be emailed out.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jess.